Wissa still on Spurs' minds, Bissouma's future, and more on the Morgan Gibbs-White transfer. Here are your daily Tottenham news headlines. Hello, my name's Craig and here are your daily Tottenham news headlines. Let's get into it. On Saturday, Mohammed Kudus posted on X a farewell message to West Ham fans saying, "Pleasure to be a Hammer running life's marathon. Thank you for the warm seat through it all. Best wishes for the season and the future." Comments on the post were then shortly turned off after a barrage of abuse from West Ham supporters. An article in the Express talks about Tottenham's to-do list in pre-season. It states that Spurs are pursuing Brentford striker João Wissa. A reunion with Thomas Frank is likely to cost a further £50 million, but that, along with the signing of Mohammed Kudus, Wissa would significantly boost Tottenham's attacking threat. Christian Romero, equally important, as Brennan Johnson's scruffy deflected finish that secured Tottenham Hotspur's European glory in Bilbao, was Christian Romero's performance at the back. Despite his campaign being hampered by injury, the 27-year-old is now being linked with Real and Atletico Madrid. Keeping the World Cup winner could prove every bit as critical as Tottenham getting new signings in. With him, they look more solid and stable unit. Lose him, and more defensive woes await. And release Richarlison, the Brazil international has shown flashes of ability since signing from Everton for £51 million 3 years ago, but has struggled for consistent form and fitness. The permanent signing of Mathys Tel and the seemingly imminent arrivals of Wissa give the club an ideal chance to cash in on the 28-year-old while he still has 2 years left on his contract. Tweak the tactics. For all the thrills, spills and excitement under Postecoglou, even his most loyal backers cannot deny that his style of piling forward at 100 miles per hour left his side wide open at the back too often. It also arguably contributed to a crippling injury list that the Australian regularly cited when results were failing. Regardless of the personnel, Frank must use the summer to form a stronger, more adaptable unit. Otherwise, the prospect of challenging at the top end of the league looks remote. Reports in Korea state that Heung-Min Son is expected to hold a meeting with Thomas Frank in the coming days to discuss his role in the team and clarify whether he will stay or seek a move elsewhere. British media reported that Thomas Frank would welcome Son staying. He might give the player a fewer minutes, though, than in previous seasons as part of his rebuilding strategy. Frank is also expected to hand the captain's armband to Christian Romero or Mickey van der Ven. Tottenham made a notable move by signing Ghanaian international Mohammed Kudus from West Ham on July 11th for £55 million. Kudus scored a brace against Korea during the 2022 Qatar World Cup. While he mainly plays as a right winger, he's able to execute all attacking roles. Tottenham also finalised a permanent deal for Mathys Tel. Claims have emerged that Tottenham set a transfer fee of £40 million for Son, who has 1 year left on his contract. As part of their pre-season schedule, Spurs travel to Seoul to play Newcastle United in the Kupang Play Series, pre-season friendlies involving European teams, at Seoul World Cup Stadium in Western Seoul on August the 3rd. Son's future may be decided after the Kupang Play match, as Spurs would reportedly owe Kupang, the organisers, a penalty of 370 million won, that's £200,000, for violating the Son Heung-min appearance clause if Tottenham sells him beforehand. TBR Football understands Fabio Paratici has started working on reducing the size of Thomas Frank's squad, but one player they're trying to sell wants to stay. Yves Bissouma has decided that he wants to stay at Tottenham Hotspur or at least the Premier League this summer. Despite having plenty of interest from abroad, the Malian international wants to remain in England and has expressed his desire to the club. Bissouma has been linked with Everton and a move to Merseyside could be a strong option for the 28-year-old. The report goes on to say that Fabio Paratici has offered the midfielder to Juventus. And the player is also attracting interest from clubs in Spain and Germany. Fenerbahce are also keen on Bissouma, and club officials have spoken to Spurs over a deal. TBI Football also reports that if the Lily-Whites can get a deal over the line for Morgan Gibbs-White over the next few days, the next area they plan to target is the midfield. Douglas Luiz would love to join Tottenham, with the player hopeful of making a return to the Premier League. Juventus are open to the possibility of selling him and have told the Brazilian to start working on finding a club that will take him. João Palhinha is another player of interest to Spurs, and the Portuguese international is being considered as an option. The 30-year-old had an underwhelming campaign at Bayern Munich and has struggled to work his way into Vincent Kompany's plans. Given Palhinha's age and his form at the Allianz Arena, Spurs would be better off targeting Luiz, who was in superb form in the Premier League at Aston Villa. Bissouma, who cost Spurs £35 million, needs to be moved on this summer, and the Brazilian international would be a serious upgrade on him. So-called super agent Sky Andrew, who has been involved in many transfers over the years, including the controversial Sol Campbell move to Arsenal, has had his say on the Gibbs-White saga. To Talk Sport, the agent revealed that for the deal to go through, Tottenham will probably have to pay more than the Gibbs-White 60 million release clause. He said, "Here's the thing, guys. It's very difficult to prove that a club went directly to a player without the permission of the club. We're getting into all sorts of things here, phone records and everything. If it goes to arbitration, where it must go within the football rules and regulations, then Forest will have to prove that the club went directly to the player or to the agent. Most clubs know that it's very difficult to prove. So if this is a case now of how much will the buying club pay for the player, it won't be £60 million, it will probably have to be more. Nobody outside the club was aware that Gibbs-White had a £60 million release clause in his contract. Tottenham found that out and tried to take advantage, but Forest are not going to let Spurs sign their star player without putting up a fight." But here's my thoughts on all those stories today. Firstly, Mohammed Kudus posting on X. Most players do this, and most players get abused, sadly, when they leave clubs, especially players that are well liked by the fans or that the fans rate. Let's be honest, they generally don't post on X anything when a player is not rated by those fans. So I'm not surprised that Mohammed Kudus, one of the best players at West Ham. It's a sad world, really. Social media, where people get abused. It can be a pretty toxic place, X, and obviously Kudus has had to turn off the replies on that post, and some of them are pretty bad and pretty disgusting, to be honest. So I don't blame him, to be honest, and I don't actually understand why some players are on X and social media, because it can be a horrible place sometimes. So, but look, he's with Tottenham now, so let's hope he can push on and be a very important player for Spurs for the next few years. Johan Wissa, this one keeps coming around and keeps floating around. I would imagine, as I've said before, Thomas Frank will want to bring in Wissa. He's worked with him very closely, obviously, at Brentford, and he knows what he can bring to the table. So let's see how that one goes. But £50 million, I don't know. I'm not sure Spurs are going to pay £50 million for Wissa. I think they have to negotiate that down, perhaps. But he would be a really good challenger for Solanke. So I wouldn't be against getting Wissa in. Heung-Min Son, we know about this one. I hope personally Sonny stays around. I've said this before again. I think it's just his presence around the dressing room and how popular he is with the squad. And I know that doesn't win trophies. Before anybody comes at me, I know that's not going to win us trophies, but sometimes the influence of other players and helping the youngsters and bring the youngsters through, I think it's personally worth keeping Sonny around for another year. And if he wants to go on a free at the end of next year, let him go. He's given us wonderful service. I don't think it's about getting money in for Son. I really don't. I think Sonny should be allowed to choose what he does and just let him do what he wants to do. He clearly loves the club. I'm sure at some point in the future, Sonny will be back as a coach or ambassador or something like that, because he's given us so many years of loyal service. So I won't have anything bad said about Son. I think he's earned the right to choose what he wants to do. Yves Bissouma, I can personally see Bissouma going. There's reports saying that he wants to stay at Spurs and certainly in the Premier League, but it sounds like he wants to stay at Tottenham. fight for his place, which is always good to hear from a player. But the inconsistency with Bissouma troubles me. Obviously played well in the final, but I just think with Spurs looking to bring in other midfielders and the other midfielders we got at the club, I'm not sure how many minutes Bissouma is going to get, but we need strength in that area. As we saw last season, we was down to the bare bones at times in the central midfield. So it will be interesting to see what happens with Bissouma. I think if the club can get some money for him, they will let him go and then bring in a number 6, which is hopefully what we're going to do, whether that be the ones that we discussed, Douglas Luiz or Palhinha, either of those players. I think for me, I'd rather bring in Douglas Luiz. Brilliant Premier League experience with Villa. I always actually rated him, and I think he could do wonders at Spurs. I think he could really work wonders in that central midfield. But Adam Walton obviously being spoken about as well. Again, a really good top quality player in the Premier League with Premier League experience. So that could work well. It's all good news. We just got to get these players in. And this Sky Andrew talking to TalkSport about the Morgan Gibbs-White transfer. This was a guy who obviously brokered or had something to do with the Sol Campbell deal to Arsenal. I don't know much about transfers at all. I'm not an agent or anything like that. I'm just a regular fan. But if somebody's got a release clause of £60 million, why would you have to pay more than that £60 million to get the player out? What's the point in having a release fee, if you like, and trigger that, but you're going to be paying more? I just don't understand it, to be honest with you. So Spurs have obviously triggered this, however much it was, this £60 million is being touted. So surely that's that part of it done. Why would you have to pay more? Perhaps somebody in the comments can explain it a bit better to me. I don't understand it. I really don't. As I've said, I think this deal gets done. It will drag on, undoubtedly. It just depends, I guess, on how much of a fight Nottingham Forest want to put up against this move. It's clear that Morgan Gibbs-White wants to go to Tottenham. He wasn't in their squad for their friendly over the weekend. And I think this is going to rumble on a bit, but I think the deal gets done. I just hope it doesn't stop us doing other deals in the meantime, rather concentrating on this. I think there's enough people at Tottenham that are working on this sort of thing that will hopefully they'll be able to split this and get this deal done and still get other deals done. Hopefully this coming week. Let's see what happens there. But get down in the comments. Let me know what are your thoughts on all the stories today. Do you think we'll get the Gibbs-White deal over the line? And what other players would you like to see come into Spurs over this transfer window? As I say, get down in the comments, let me know. Come on, you Spurs.